I have made plenty of investments and lost probably a couple $1 million over the years because of poor decisions. But you got to make mistakes if you want to grow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Community Matters Cafe for Coffee and Conversations. My name is Jana Angel, and I am your host, and I am inviting you into this chat, this topic, this group chat today to talk about how we are brewing bigger, beautiful, and more bold lives. That's the whole point of this. I'm trying to go after things that I haven't done before and trying to surround myself with people who have taken risks that, frankly, I might have been scared to take. So I thought for this conversation, after a very special and big retirement weekend, I would invite one of the biggest risk takers I know to join me here for Coffee and Conversations, the one and only David Angel, Big Bird, or as I like to call him, Daddy O. Dad, I'm so happy you're here today.
Oh, me too. Thank you, sweetheart. It's awfully good to be here. So proud of all y'all are doing, and just happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy you're here, and obviously one thing that I thought was really funny was when I actually asked you to come, he goes, "Oh, I can't, I've got a meeting that day," which was really funny. And I appreciated you changing your schedule, but there's been so many times along the way where you have changed and you adapted and you've made things work, not only for us, but to be there for our family, to be there for your customers, to be there for your community. Something about you is you always made it work. But this weekend you had a big retirement party with the TAMs. Pretty much everyone I've ever seen in my entire life was in one room at the American Legion. And everyone just had wonderful, great things to say about you. So I thought this would be a great time looking back on that weekend, but not just Saturday and Sunday, but your life as a whole. Where do you see some of the highlights for people who don't know you as my dad or a Big Bird around town?
First of all, I'm the most blessed man. 3 fabulous daughters, the greatest wife in the world. I was raised by fabulous parents, and I think that's where it starts. Our family comes from western North Carolina, the mountains. All the Angel clan comes out of Franklin, and Mom's family comes out of Cherokee, and we evolved into Rock Hill whenever I was 14. In that year, I grew 8 inches, so I really started playing a lot of basketball then, and we went to school at Rock Hill High School, where very fortunate, my numbers retired and my jersey's hanging in there. Had a great, wonderful career there. Then from there on to Clemson, where I had a great career there, led scoring and rebounding for my career. And it is a great school. The proudest part of that was graduating on time. Went on and played some pro ball here and in Europe, drafted by the Cavaliers and the Carolina Cougars, and went on and played in Barcelona, Spain, and several other stops around Europe. I came back here to play with a team in South Bend, Indiana, in a new league called the IBA, the International Basketball League, for the South Bend Bisons. And I was all excited because this is going to be like the B League to the NBA. And the sad thing is, mid-season, December 15th, after I'd gone through all the cash I made in Europe, waiting on the big check came in and it bounced. Team folded, league folded. I'm in South Bend, Indiana, where it's 10 degrees and snowing. And for a South Carolina boy, that just wasn't a place to be, unemployed. And that's where I began my real job career.
So when you started your real job career, you started selling. One thing about my dad, if you've ever met him, if he's ever asked you to donate to some sort of charity event or wanted to write your new business in insurance, you've never been afraid to make the ask. It's something that I think I still struggle with, even having these conversations and, saying, hey, does somebody want to come and be part of this show? Does somebody want to, contribute money? Does somebody want to sponsor things like that? You've never been afraid to go for the ask. So how do you get past that point of just saying, I don't have any shame in this. I don't have any embarrassment in this. And can you tell us when that first big ask was when you were in South Bend?
Actually, it was whenever I interviewed with a guy. Team folded, league folded. A friend of mine said, yeah, I got a good job. I'm dying here. I got no car, got nothing. because the company that was letting me use a car was taking it back since I wasn't a star anymore. And I went out and interviewed with a guy and opened a brand new Ford truck dealership. And I said, look, I'm a basketball player. I've never sold big trucks, but I need a job and I'll work hard for you and you'll never lose money on me. And I think that's one of the biggest things. You have to give people a reason to believe that you believe this is the right decision, that you will work hard to make sure their commitment is paid off. And after an hour interview, Mr. Brad Tinkham hired me, and he said, what you got for transportation? I said, I don't have any. He said, picked up the phone and called the local Ford car dealer and said, I'm sending a long, tall drink of water down there. Give him whatever car he wants, and I'll guarantee the note. After 1 hour, this man guaranteed the note for me to get a new car. And I went to work for him, and within a year, I was the top salesman. Again, when I started, I didn't know anything at all about big trucks and trailers. All I knew is they were big and they were bad. But, I learned, and I think that's the second part, the willingness to commit, but it's also focus. Find out what you have a passion for, and I have a passion for sales and service. And find out what you have a passion for, and focus on that. You'll have so many distractions in your life, but if you stay focused, you will find success.
So you talked about staying focused and finding success, but you also mentioned earlier this happened when you weren't a big star, and that punches me in my gut to hear because I think my daddy's always a big star and you're always a big star to me. But I also remember that feeling when I retired from pro volleyball, and I think this is a path you and I have walked in very similarly. My dad had played ball in Europe. I wanted to go play ball in Europe, and I'll never forget being in the aisle of a Harris Teeter with mom, and she was introducing me to someone, and she said, this is my daughter Jana. She's my oldest. She used to play pro volleyball in France. And that hearing that word used to right beside the lettuce and the cucumbers in a Harris Teeter just shocked my system because I didn't have a current identity. So how did you, obviously out of necessity, because like you said, your job evaporated out from underneath you, but how did you emotionally become okay with selling cars versus being a basketball player anymore?
Well, and it was heavy trucks. Now I knew cars, I didn't know heavy trucks, so it was really a double risk there because I did not know what it was I was going to be selling. But again, I think at some point in time you have to just put your head down and get focused. And an old coach of mine, Lindbergh Moody, told me, and he was a great influence. He had been a player. He gave up a career in the NBA to come and be with his children because they had a debilitating disease. And he told me whenever I left Rock Hill, he said, before you ever come home, make sure your success is something other than basketball. Don't be one of those jocks, one of those athletes that comes home and tries to live off the high school days. Mm-hmm. Make sure your success is something other than basketball at a place that people don't know you. Then you will have found success, my son. And that always stuck with me. I want to be more than just an over-the-hill ball player. Yeah. But you're right, that transition, whenever you look around and there's no more crowds, there's no more standing on the free throw line with a game on the line and 20,000 people yelling at you and everything, that the jazz of that, you got to find a place to put that.
Yeah.
And so I had to refocus that in the jazz of making a sale. Mm-hmm. And I've had to do that several times in my career, several different ways.
So in all those times that you created that word that I feel like we all hate since COVID, that pivot word, and it probably even applies more in basketball, making that pivot, making that turn. You mentioned 20,000 people screaming your name. Those weren't always positive cheers. I wanted to share a couple stories. One, you have to tell about Grammy and how she handled negative crowds because there's no more kick-ass woman than I know than my Grammy. She was incredible. But I remember the first time I ever figured out what a hater was, and it was actually with my dad. If anyone's ever read the Herald, they were one of the first local platforms to have a digital presence online, and they would publish their articles. And I remember someone published an article about my sisters and I and talking about how we were, really becoming good in our sports and in volleyball, basketball, and track and everything. And this great article, and we're so proud because especially when you're a kid in high school, you've made it in the paper. That's just big doings. And I look at this article and then I see some nasty comment under it with a name that's not a real name. It's just numbers and letters. And it said that, you were just a guy who couldn't really jump. The only reason you were a basketball player was because you were tall, and we weren't any better as athletes. So to me, first of all, it shocked my system that somebody wrote this. And I think as I got older, I thought about, wow, somebody really had to have something up their crawl to go to the old school Herald platform, make an account, create a fake name, and then say something mean. But it shocked me because we've always been people where it was like, if you had something to say, you were going to say it. I mean, your dad would write the local paper or the local news every single week with a name signed David Angel Sr. that said, women and men deserve equal sports coverage. Where are my girls? Where are my girls? Grammy would stand up for people and say the same thing. And you and mom have always been like that. But you experienced haters way before they had a digital platform and even before players were really protected. So do you think that developed a tougher skin for you?
Well, I grew up with a mom and dad that were supportive. They were fine Christian people, and they raised us in the church. They raised us to be the best that we could be with our individual talents. Now, as I grew, it created lots of problems. Whenever you're 6'8", 6'9", and you're in the 14 or 15, 16 years old, you walk down the hallway in school and people cower and scream and people make comments, and you learn to get a tough skin. And that's what mom and dad taught me is haters are going to hate, and people are going to find some way to criticize you no matter. I raised $1 million. Yeah, but he did it because of this, that. They're going to find a reason to criticize because they did not accomplish. And that's how my mom and dad taught me to look at things. You can't let those things bother you. And also, whenever you're tall, you're 7 foot tall, or you're a bold presence, you're going to be in a fishbowl. Whenever I walk in the room and you walk in the room, everybody stops and looks around, and some people are going to make comments. Some of them are going to be great and wonderful and positive, and I really appreciate that. And sometimes they may not be, sometimes they may be negative, but that's the way life is. And in the business world, you're going to have people that love what you do and people hate what you do. I built an insurance agency, and I made the comment many times, not everybody in Rock Hill loved me, but they would still come do business with us because they loved Gene in my office or Becky or someone else. They loved somebody there. So finding someone or finding the wherewithal to get good people and understanding that not everybody's going to love you, and understanding that you have to rise above that is one of the great characteristics that mom and dad taught me.
I mean, I do have to say that's easier said than done, though,
Oh, yes.
because it sucks. Like, I hate when I hear that people don't like me, and I hated reading that comment, especially because it was about my sisters and my dad, and I was like, who is this yahoo that isn't even brave enough to put their name out there? And that's only gotten worse.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean,
social media has just empowered the haters to no end, and they're cowards because they don't put the name on it. My father would write letters to the editor, always signed his name.
Oh yeah.
And the main things were about women's sports being equal and picking up trash and keeping Rock Hill clean. Whenever my father died, the city manager said they're going to have to get another editor for the paper because they're going to have to take up all the space that your dad took up writing letters asking people to keep Rock Hill clean, because that was a passion of his. And one thing that you're going to get that you have gotten from the Angel and the New Stratton name is passion. If we have a passion, that's where you go for.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've told a story on Pop, and I feel like we have to tell this story about Grammy, because so many times either my mom, and she comes from a family where, again, they took no guff off of anybody, and your parents were the same, but there was a time where you went to a gym and people were just being awful to you. I think it was a Rock Hill High game, and they had some awful sign, and Grammy went off on
I
everybody.
have to say this. This was at Charlotte Catholic High School here in Charlotte. We came up here from Rock Hill to play at Charlotte Catholic, and there was a big banner, like one of those brown paper banners up on the wall, and it says, "Angel go to hell," with a little small O at the end. And my mom, being the fine Southern Baptist lady that she was, comes into this Catholic school and sees this sign up on the wall, and she just freaked out. And she grabbed some administrator. She says, "I can't believe y'all would let that sign go up there. That angel is my son. Now, he's an angel. And you're up there saying almost cuss words. And I need that sign to come down." And they took the sign down.
Yeah. Once she started swinging that purse around, man, she really smacked people into submission there.
She was tough. But that was, and whenever the first time we went into when I was playing in Spain, and we flew into Tenerife. It was the first time an American had gone into Tenerife to play in about 5 years. As we landed at the airport, back then you had to climb down the steps out of the airplane, but there was a big banner in the window at the airport that said, "Yankee go home. Yankee Angel go home." And I'm going, I just got here. What did I do wrong? But that's the way it is.
I definitely want to talk about your time in Spain, because there are so many people who travel internationally now, and travel is just something you do on a Tuesday. But back when you went, it was so completely different. And first of all, like I know that had to be a challenging experience because you weren't going into the NBA, so you decided to go and play overseas. And what was that experience like for you? Because it's completely different than what players going to play overseas now experience.
Well, I was with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and was not a good place for me, and I didn't have a passion about playing there. And a friend of mine who was playing in Spain called, and so he said, "You need to come over here. They're going to love you over here. 7 foot tall, and you can run, and da-da-da-da." And he said, "You'll do well. You'll enjoy this." I said, "It's Spain. You got to be kidding me." He said, "No, no, no." But I've told the story many times. The Spanish people treated me so well, but it was such a mystery. Now, I was fluent in French because I'd studied French since 3rd grade. So I wound up going to Europe to play basketball, but I wound up in Spain. So I had a little bit of knowledge of living in or talking about foreign countries, but Spain was just, might as well been another planet. But whenever I got there, and we went out on the court, I got off the plane, in the car, straight to the gym, put on my togs, and I started playing within an hour after landing in Spain.
Time out. What the hell are togs?
My basketball outfit.
Oh, okay.
I had to put on my gym shorts and my tennis shoes because they wanted to see what they had bought. Because I was the first American that had come to that area. That was the first year Spain allowed Americans to come play in Europe. A different world back then. That was when it was just European ball was just starting to take off and go. And I was in that first group, and it was such a wonderful experience. And I happened to be at the right place, the right time, with the right coach, who you've met. My teammates, they just welcomed me warmly, and I had a wonderful career there and a wonderful time there. But I also tell the word that I learned there, and you I think read this. They use the word simpatico, and simpatico is just such an all-consuming word in the Spanish language over there, and it is welcoming, loving. We really don't have a word that encompasses everything simpatico means, but it really changed my life living in Spain. Now, whenever I left, my mom said, "Go for it." My dad said, "Are you crazy?" My father being very, very conservative, but it was leaving here and having been out of York County just to go on basketball recruiting trips and things like that. I mean, I had not traveled. I had no idea. So it was truly taking that blind step. But it's a blind step that changed my life for the positive.
I was going to say, you talked about how warm and welcoming everything was, but it was also a challenging time there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can be honest about that. You had a story about running on the beach that I'd love for you to share with everybody.
Whenever I went there, Generalissimo Franco was still the dictator, all the way from World War II. He is the one that had brought Spain together from 7 countries into one, and everybody had to speak Castilian. When I got there, they were only then allowing people to speak a little Catalan or a little Basque. A year or two before that, no, you couldn't even do that. I mean, the control of a dictatorship was something I had never encountered. There were 2 types of police. There were the traffic police, and then there were the Guardia Civil. And they had these little funky hats. You may have heard of the Gendarme de Civil. These were the Guardia Civil, and they carried machine guns, and they had the authority to shoot anyone on sight they thought was committing a crime. They would blow a whistle, fire a warning shot, and the next shot was at you. And it seems like it was a scary time, but you could walk down the street with $100 bills taped to your shirt at 3 o'clock in the morning, and nobody would touch you because the Guardia Civil would rise up out of the sidewalk. They totally controlled. Everything was under total control. But now also had our train stop coming out of the Barcelona train station. Somebody stood on the back and yelled, "Downward Franco, downward Franco." And they stopped the train, brought him in, drug him off, and we didn't see him again. So it was true total control. Communist control, not so much more just the dictatorship. And as I was running one night, it was late, I came in, I couldn't run. So I took off running, and I'm running down the streets to the back streets that I normally ran during the daytime. And I heard a whistle, and I just thought it was another drunk tourist whistling at me. I went, yeah. And then I heard a gunshot. And I said, oh my gosh. So I dove on the ground and laid there, and then hear the click of the boots as they came up beside me, and they said it was a Guardia Civil. That was a warning shot. And they said, "Arriba." I didn't do Arriba, went, "Get up." And they said, and when I saw how tall I was, they went, "Oh, baloncesto." I went, yeah. That's me. And said, "Oh, well, go ahead. No. I'm going back to
You're like, nope, I'm good. Workout's over.
But you never had to worry about crime because the dictatorship was under such a heavy hand. And that was a real change for me after the freedoms we have here in America that we often don't treasure and don't appreciate.
Well, something else you mentioned is that the fact that it was safe, that the people were kind. I mean, we talk about brewing a big, bold, beautiful life and taking those risks. That was a risk in itself, going to Spain. But do you feel like it made you just more open to people living lives differently? I think that's something that you've always taught me, and something I've always been challenged in myself, is that I don't understand hatred towards people who just do things differently. You know, just because they're not the same way that we do them doesn't make them wrong. Do you feel like traveling over there gave you that insight that you were able to bring back?
That and our family background, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, my mother, our family, you know, there's always food on the table. The door is always open for friends or strangers, whoever, and regardless of your stature in the community or anything else, you know, I watched them bring in the drunks or bring in the preacher and everything in between, but it was accepting people for who they are and what they were. And when I went to Spain, I really, really got that just blazed down my heart because you saw it so much. To appreciate the difference between the German tourists and the English tourists and the locals from Spain, and how their lifestyle changed from one nation to the other. It just gave me a greater appreciation of, it's a very, very big world, but it's also a small world.
Yeah, which is, I think, also too why treating people kindly and with kindness is so important, because you make an impression wherever you go. And like you said, being 7 feet tall, I mean, everybody in our family is super tall. It's probably the first thing people notice about us. But you said that also, you always told me that comes with a lot of responsibility when you are making an impression, when you are meeting people. If you're having a bad day, people are going to notice me having a bad day first. So there's a responsibility in there. but I want to kind of drive our conversation more towards things that I actually learned when I was older. I think you and Mom did a beautiful job of creating a childhood where we didn't worry. There were things I didn't know that we had gone through, or that we'd experienced, or that we'd lost as a family until I was much older, because you all protected us in such a beautiful way. But when you look back at the risks you took, not just in sports, but in business, what really stands out to you and what made you take that leap?
You know, in sports, there are rewards and there are failures. One of the great things sports does is teaches you some nights you're going to win, and you're going to do the best you can do and you win. Sometimes you do the best you can do and you lose. Well, tomorrow you got to get up and do it again. And I think that, as much as anything, prepared me for life and prepared me for the business world. The main thing is you got to get at it. You got to keep working, you know. In the business world, you start a business, you jump in business. It's like getting in a rowboat and jumping in the ocean. You want to be a cruise ship, but right now you're a rowboat. So you got to start rowing. And if you don't row, then you're just going to sit there and drown in your sorrows and whatever. So you got to go out there and get after it. The risks, the risk of having, and I learned from this whenever Brad co-signed that first note for me. That was a risk he took, and that taught me risk. And then I wanted to pay back that risk and make sure he never lost. From there, I went to Akron. From there, I went to Atlanta. Whenever I went to Atlanta, it was overwhelming because I was taking a job as a sales manager of the largest Ford truck dealership in the world. And the guy I was placing had been working at that dealership longer than I had been alive. And so I'm replacing a legend. But it was a great opportunity, huge opportunity. From there on to Hickory, where the good Lord blessed me with meeting your mother.
Hi, Mom.
And I was ready to go to Australia because I just felt like, life changes, and Australia, good old Southern accent in Australia, boy, I'd be a killer salesman. And a friend of mine that I was in the JCs with asked me to come and help run his radio and TV station at WHKY. Didn't know anything about it, but yeah, that sounds like fun. That sounds like something we could do. And after I went the first day, I had a passion for it. A passion for growing sales, building this operation, and we're going to do it with hard work. We're going to do it with a passion of service. We're going to do the right thing. It went very, very well. And from there, wound up getting back in the truck business with Rick Hendrick here. And then one day, at the age of 40, Drew Vaughn called and said, "We're ready for you to come on board at Nationwide." I'd been interviewing with Nationwide for about 6 years, but they were in a hiring freeze because of Hugo. They thought they were losing money. And there were things changed, and he called, and fortunately, your mom and I just sold our house, had a little equity, and we were getting ready to build a big house. So instead of building a big house, we started an insurance agency. And I went from a 6-figure income to $26,000.
On my birthday.
On your birthday.
On my birthday.
And with your little sister on the way, big risk, but your mom and I had agreed she was going to run the house, and I'll go make the money, and I'll do whatever we got to do. That's 2 or 3 jobs, that's what we'll do. That's my job. Her job is raising you guys, which was a much more difficult job than what I had.
Raising us, and then also we would move into a house, and this was before everyone was flipping and flopping houses left and right on HGTV. My mom would move us into a house that looked like a sneeze could blow it over, and she would completely redo it herself. And my favorite part looking back was when people would come and give her quotes and things like that, especially when she was expecting, she'd be in her Keds and her crew socks and everything, working on the house, and people would come give her these complete bullshit quotes, like, "Oh, you need these pipe and this, that, and the other." And she would just, very kindly, like in her jewelry and her waves and her big t-shirt and everything, just, and then she would respond to them with
Oh, yeah.
what the job actually was, and you would just see these big workmen's eyes get really bug-eyed, and they'd kind of hike up their pants and
did
go,
she do that?
oh, right, right. Well, maybe we were just looking at something else, and she'd be like, so did you want to take another look and see if you wanted to rewrite that quote? I mean, and she was just one thing that she always did, and I think this is where you two are so different. My mom will get you before you even realize you got. Like my dad, you see him coming,
Oh, yeah.
or you're going to hear him first. I mean, let's
That's
be
right.
real.
Yeah.
But mom, you never see her coming in, and she was never going to let somebody else make her look ungraceful or unsouthern. I don't know that you quite had that control
gene
for
wasn't
us
on my side of the family,
growing up.
no.
We always like to joke that I think you got thrown out of every gym south of the Mason-Dixie line when we
Pretty
started playing
much.
sports.
Pretty much. You know, the officials, the referees, just did not appreciate my support and correcting them for bad calls, especially if someone was not taking care of one of my daughters. So I tried to help. And often I was asked to find another place to sit outside. So, and 3 church leagues.
I know. I was like, Ted, we're in church. We got to see this guy on Sunday.
But we still won all the church championships. So.
We did. The Flying Angels were a great success. But when you are looking back, when you're maybe looking at the gyms you got thrown out of, or you're looking at decisions you made, is there anything that you ever think to yourself, I wish I would have done this differently, or I wish I would have handled this differently? I wish I would have changed this in my business.
You know, in retrospect, I'm disappointed in myself because you got the brunt of me being a sidewalk or a bleacher dad, more so than your 2 sisters.
You're welcome, Alexander Savannah.
Yes, but the oldest child gets that. The oldest child is the learning manual for the parents. And I'm sad that I was so pushy and so overt and all that, but that's okay. It was not for lack of love, and everything you must do must be for love, for caring. And I just didn't do that very, very well. But outside of that, you know, I think those are things that make us up. I really don't have any regrets in life. I'm just, all the mistakes, you know, I look back, the risks I've taken, and I have messed up so many things. Whenever we first started, your mom and I, we were trying to get up and get going, and we had a little side, we had somebody sell us a whole big batch of earrings, and we're going to go around to all the places and sell earrings. Well, that was a loser. We bought into a condo that was going to be built and was going to be great and wonderful. Well, that was a loser. I mean, I have made plenty of investments and lost probably a couple $1 million over the years because of poor decisions. But you got to make mistakes if you want to grow. And whenever I'd make a mistake, you know, it's like I go back to being in the ocean. You can sit there and drown in your sorrows, sitting in the boat, or you can start rowing and fight your way out of this. And that's what, you know, I've been blessed with the great work ethic that Mom and Dad gave me. Chan's mom and dad gave her. One of the great things we got was love, but we also got a good work ethic. No willingness to do what you got to do. And so, you know, that's how you overcome things. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be criticized. And you have to have a belief in yourself. And you have to be willing to work your way through something instead of figuring out, instead of sitting there questioning about what happened.
Right.
Figure out what we can do to get out of this problem, to change the dynamics of the problem.
Find solutions.
Find the solutions. Whenever I started the agency, you know, we're sitting there, absolutely no money, anything else but getting up and getting going. But I knew in the insurance industry, it was something that I did have a passion for because it did everything that I wanted to do. I wanted to sell, but really what I wanted to do was solve people's problems, to service and give people hope be the one to rescue when a house burns down, when they've had a car wreck, whenever they have an illness or whatever. How can I be help? I love being that person that can come and help. That has been probably one of the great attributes of our family, is trying to be that person who can help. And so the insurance industry was a great business for me.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you always told us, one thing about an angel, is that we're gonna show up. If we say we're gonna be there, if we say we're gonna do something, because you just always said that your word, it is your commitment. We're not bailing, we're not flaking. If we said we're gonna go, we're gonna go. Even if nobody else shows up, we said we're gonna go. And Mom would make sure that we were dressed when we got there.
That's right.
But two things I wanted to ask you. It's something you and I have never talked about, but I know for a fact that there were people along the way who didn't treat you well within your own office, that you gave money, opportunity, love to, people who I've even said, like, I would have called the police, I would have thrown them in jail, I would have not let them have any more chances. But you didn't take that road. How do you move past people who hurt you in business?
Well, and it's not just business, it's in your life.
Because I feel like I take that stuff and I just, like, it just gets me here.
And and it gets me too. It gets everyone, but it's how long do you want to dwell on it? And, the old adage about the guy that goes to the classroom and he pours a glass half full of water. He starts walking around with it and everybody's thinking he's going to tell them is it half full or half empty? But all he does is walk around the room with it holding the glass. And at the end of the class, he says, is there anything y'all want to know about this glass? They said, yes, half full, it's half empty. He says, no. He said, it weighs the same as it did whenever I poured it. But the longer I carry it, the more tired my arm becomes. And this glass now feels like it weighs 10 pounds because I've been carrying it right here for the last hour. And that's how I feel about the people that wrong you or problems that come up in life. You can dwell on them. You can fuss, you can lash out, you can throw them in jail. You can, I'm in a situation right now with someone that I can sit here and go after them and scream and yell and jump up and down and try to hurt them. But who are you really hurting?
Right.
You know?
It's you expanding that energy.
Deal with it today and then turn the page. I'm not one of those people that beat you up over something that happened 10 years ago because I forgot about it. Now, not everybody's that way, and it's a difficult thing to do.
I'm not that way. I wish I was that way.
That's a wonderful benefit, and I think that also comes from being 7 foot tall and being the center of attention wherever you go, walking in a room and being in the fishbowl, knowing that things are going to be said good, things are going to be said bad. Take them all with a grain of salt because they're just temporary. All of these things are temporary. When somebody steals money from your business, whenever somebody says something bad about you, does a wrong, lies or cheats or steals, it's just temporary. So the sooner you can deal with it, address it, and put it behind you, you can go on to bigger and better things. And that is the secret, I believe, to risk-taking. Because you're going to take risks, and you're going to fall on your face. You're going to take risks that put yourself so far behind the 8 ball. 2003. We had a wonderful agency in Rock Hill. We were doing well. I had a couple offices, and the opportunity came up for one of the largest agencies in North Carolina.
Oh, I remember this.
Here in Charlotte, and offices in Charlotte and Raleigh became available. The guy had not done well. He had not taken care of them. He was under investigation by the Department of Insurance and all that. Long story short, I had an opportunity to buy it. The way I handled it was so bad. Oh my goodness. Because I didn't study enough. I didn't prepare myself enough. But nobody had done anything like that with our company, so I didn't know. But I did what I thought was a good deal. As it turned out, I probably could have bought it cheaper or done a whole lot differently. But, it was the cards that I dealt myself. This is the deal we got. Let's see what we got to do to make it successful. So I bought this agency and all the real estate and everything with it. And for the first 10 years, I did not take a dime out of the operation.
I know, we were like Amazon, just losing money
It was,
at first.
we're going to focus on getting this right and being successful. And the other thing I'll say about business and with business people, if you're listening, now there's two great things, two mottos I've had in life. Marry up, which I obviously did. I've got the greatest wife in the world, and hire up. And the people that I've been able that I've hired, I've always tried to hire people that have a passion to serve, a passion to take care of people, treat people like they want to be treated. Your word is your bond. Always do the right thing. Learning insurance is easy, but if I'm running a real estate office or a medical office or a hardware store or whatever, it doesn't matter. You got to hire the right people. And if you're one of those people out there who doesn't have a passion about what you're doing and you don't love what you're doing, go do something else. Go find what you have a passion to do and go work hard at that, and you will find success. And don't have people around you that don't have that passion. If you hire somebody and they don't have that passion and you don't see that caring, loving nature with them, get rid of them. They're just a cancer in your organization.
Yeah, I know it's like we always want people to change, and we think sometimes we always in our family we call them our project people. I'm a project, and in our heads we're like, okay, if I love them enough, if I give them enough opportunity, if I give them enough of a platform, they are going to change their energy. They'll change my passion for the positive. But I think you're right. It's giving space and an opportunity to people who already have that passion. Maybe they don't have the skill set, they have the passion. They want to learn. They want to understand. I was given that opportunity coming into TV. I had never done news before. I had only done private production. I'd done pay-for-play. I'd done commercials and things like that, but I'd never done news. And I had a boss in Jacksonville who took that chance on me, and she said, well, you have everything you need. I can teach you how to do EMPS and teach the rundown.
And you can teach skill sets.
Right.
But you can't teach passion. And you can't teach a caring nature, and you can't teach a joie de vivre, joy for life. And if you want to enjoy life and you want to have fun, you have to have those things first.
Yeah. Now, the last story I'm actually going to tell myself before we go, but it's something that is probably one of the most valuable things my dad ever taught me, and I had to learn it the hard way. But I remember I was at Rollinson Road Middle School, and we had basketball tryouts, and they picked the team, and I made the team and got our jerseys and our uniforms and everything. And after a couple of practices, they said, all right, we're going to pick team captains. And so everyone's voting on team captains, and I came home and was just sad that I wasn't team captain. And Dad said, well, who got team captain? And I said, Megan Young. Love you, Megan. You're always amazing. But, I said, well, Megan Young got it. And he goes, well, who'd you vote for? And I said, well, Megan. And he looked at me and goes, well, if you're not going to vote for you, why the hell would anybody else vote for you? And I just remember, first of all, it being kind of a brash thing to say, but it was such a good metaphor for life. And I think up until that point, I didn't feel comfortable really taking up too much space. I didn't feel comfortable maybe looking cocky or looking overly confident. But when you said that to me, if you're not going to vote for you, why the hell would anybody else vote for you? It just changed so many things with my perspective, thinking that, no, if I'm not willing to say I deserve a raise, I think you should pay me this much, I think I should have my position, I think I should get these things in my contract, why would anyone else give them to me? But where did that come from for you?
Well, that comes back to closing the sale. All right? Because the first person you got to sell is yourself. I have to believe in what I'm doing, and maybe I need to sell myself on, wait a minute, I could do that job. Wait a minute, I'm good enough to this. They should pay me that, but why should they pay me that? So I've got to sell. Anytime you're selling something, you can throw a number out there, but that's not going to get it done. You have to show the value. So whenever you're faced with situations like that, you have to feel that value within yourself. You have to, like I said, if you didn't vote for yourself, that means you didn't have the value in yourself. So you've got to create that value in yourself, and you have to sell yourself. I say, I've said many times, the difference between salespeople and marketing people. Most everybody is a marketing person. They can tell you all the great, wonderful things about this, but they can't ask for the sale. The salesman is a person that regardless of what the marketing is, they're going to close the sale. They're going to ask for the order. They're going to say, I am worthy of you trusting me that this is a good decision for you to make, to do this with me, to hire me to do this or whatever the case may be. But that's the closer. We're talking about, well, he's a salesman.
It's got like a bad rap, yeah.
Well, it is. And I can tell you, we can take 3-hour stories about all the different closing techniques and all those kinds of things. But it all comes down to you telling yourself that this is the right thing for that person. And if you believe it, then you need to relate that to them and help them understand why. My father, God rest his soul, and he was the greatest, most competitive person I ever knew. But having to follow his legacy, and his legacy was, you always knew where David Angel stood. He told you right, he told you straight, but the main thing he said was, if you don't believe it, why should I believe it? And the other part was, if you worry about the needs of the other, if I worry about you instead of how much commission I'm going to make, if I put the needs of the customer first, the commissions, the return on investment, whatever it is, that'll take care of itself. But if you don't put the other person's needs first, then you will have difficulty finding success. The last part of that is, you must be willing to take a risk. If you look around, you look on Shark Tank, you look at go around town, all the millionaire, most everybody out there, and one of my favorite expressions, most everybody that has found great success were willing to risk all for what they believed in. They were willing to quit school and start this business. They were willing to walk away from this salaried job over here to start their own business. The people that started this, I guarantee you somebody has risked everything because they believe that this coffee shop and the people it serves is their passion and it's going to serve people. They believe in it and they're willing to take that risk. That's the whole deal. You got to be willing to risk all for what you believe in and then be willing to work, not because somebody didn't say it right or you didn't get that loan from the bank this way, but because it's the right thing, and I'm going to keep paddling, and I'm going to keep finding a way, and I'm going to expose myself to more people. The other night we had 350 wonderful close friends from my retirement party, and somebody said, how do you know all these people? I said, you got to get to know people. This is a wonderful area. I've lived all over the world, and I always want to come back to this area within about a 50-mile radius of Charlotte, because I think we're in the greatest spot in the world. Yeah. We're 2 hours to snow skiing, 3 hours to surfing.
Right there.
Everything you want is right here. We live on a beautiful place on Lake Wiley. Charlotte's got a major airport. It's got all the great sports, everything you want to shop for. You can go anywhere else. It's too hot, it's too cold, whatever. That's why we have so many people from around the country want to come right here to the Carolinas.
Yep. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina. Now, before we go, I do have to ask you something we are asking all of our guests on Coffee and Conversations right now, in just a couple of sentences. What is it that fills your cup?
My family.
Good
It's just the great thing insurance industry did for me, and having your own business, doesn't have to be insurance, it can be anything, is you determine what you do with your time. As you girls were growing up, I learned this from my dad. My father saw 89 of 92 games I played at Clemson, and the 3 he missed was because he got weathered out and couldn't get there. Now, it meant the world to me to be standing on the free throw line with a game on the line and knowing that even though these 20,000 people are calling me every name in the book, right up there is somebody that loves me and believes in me, and that's what I wanted to take with you guys. So that's the reason, one of the main reasons I did what I did. I learned that from my dad, so that I could be there and come and be whatever was needed. And that's always been my priority. In life, you have to have priorities. You know, the priorities need to be your relationship with the Lord, the love of your family, and jobs and those other things. They kind of, they're there. We'll get to them, but these have to be your priorities, and they've been my priorities. The loving wife that I have feels the same way. Your mother and I have been blessed, and those blessings come from, I think, a life of service. We've raised more money and everything else. Your mom has been on every committee and fundraiser and everything else. And, you know, the Lord has always said, give unto others, and that's what we've done. If you give, it'll come back to you tenfold. And I'm the perfect example of that.
Well, I appreciate you giving us your time today here at Community Matters Cafe. Thank you guys all for joining us for another great conversation here. And I appreciate you brewing that bold, beautiful life with me as we continue this journey again here at Community Matters Cafe in Charlotte, where coffee and conversations will fill up your cup next time. To everybody out there, thank you so much for joining me for Coffee and Conversations. Now, if you want more stories of motivation, inspiration, and empowerment that can fill up your cup when it's empty, no matter where you are, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more.